Hey, how's it going, everyone? I just want to do a quick lesson using Mark 6:11. I think it's interesting that this verse is 6:11, so 6 times 11 is 66, and so there's a lot of things like that in the Bible. There's 66 books in the Bible without the Apocrypha, which I believe is canon, and there's 9:11, Revelation 9:11, 9 times 11, 99 rotated at 66, and we see spiritual significance of that. So there's a lot of numerology all over the place, but that's not the focus of this. So Mark 6:11 reads, "And whosoever shall not receive you nor hear you when ye depart, then shake off the dust under your feet for a testimony against them. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city." And so this is a powerful statement, and I want to talk about something that I've been kind of again experiencing more, or realizing more. I've had a sense of this throughout my whole life. Growing up, I grew up in a Hindu family, and I started reading the Bible when I was around like 17 or 18. About that time, I had a couple friends give me the Bible, and then so it was very sort of taboo in my household to read it. So I was like hiding the Bible, and like reading it underneath the sheets with like a light and stuff. And like you would think like I was planning some you know major overthrow or something, planning some evil thing, but I was just trying to read the Bible in a Hindu family. And now I know it's not my parents' fault. Everybody is born into their lot, and I don't know what the end thing is for them, but their lot up to now is worshiping thousands and millions of gods, which is ridiculous. But it was like it was something that I had to like hide, and all that kind of stuff. And then so basically speaking about God and learning about God and truth, we couldn't, I couldn't do it openly. Now I literally don't care. Like, I mean, I speak about God like as if God is literally like sitting here right next to me. I don't care, what people think, and atheism to me is absolutely dead. Even without flat Earth, it's just dead. Like the whole Big Bang ball Earth thing spinning through space. Let's just say, even if that is true, which obviously it's not, God obviously made that. Like there's no way that it's just a statistical outcome of just a cosmic vomit. So that's retarded. God, to me at this point now is very much, I'm open to speaking about it. And if people don't like it, I don't care. In fact, I want to kind of get a feel for whether people are open to talking about it. And if they're not, I don't want to be around them. And obviously work is different. And then, leisure, I have a few people that I golf with and, that I interact with. And I can kind of have a sense of what the structure of the conversation will be like. But apart from that, if people don't believe in God, and they believe in the Big Bang, and they're ballers, and then they're baller Christians, and then they're baller Christians who don't want to talk about the mark of the beast. I mean, they do not exist, in my mind. And so, now it's a lot different. And obviously, like being older and financially independent, living on my own, those are all things that are enabling this fervor, this independence. But growing up, it was taboo in my home to talk about God and truth openly. And then obviously in school, it's worse because there's no class, there's no mechanism for learning about God. It's strictly just learning whatever is written in textbooks and to be indoctrinated. And even if that stuff is actually true that we're being taught, and I now being a flat earther, I know a lot of it is not. It shouldn't be taught that way. It's like no centralized agency should be deciding what I learn. And obviously I know now that this deception is from God, so the only entity I can be angry at is him, and I think he knows that that's the case. He's not stupid, but we hope, and I hope, that it was for a righteous purpose. That's all I can hope for at this point. And so, in school, God is taboo, so you can't talk about God there. So that's a big problem. And then even in the church that I would start to go to, at that time, and then even in undergrad, and then really every church that I've been in, you can't talk about, Jesus or in any serious way. Like even bringing up the fact that Jesus is black, which is obvious that he is, according to the Bible and just common sense, that's taboo. And I was just on a hangout, and people were literally like debating this, and they're like, no, he's not, he's white, he's olive skinned, what, you're a racist, and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, I find it at this point kind of like entertaining. Like sometimes I'm just bored, and I'll go in there, and because I have really nothing else to do, but so I go in there, hopefully trying to share something that's like encouraging to someone who has an ear to hear. But I already know that most people will find just that point alone offensive, and that's not even anywhere near all the different conspiracies that are no longer conspiracies to me. And so talking about God in any kind of seriousness in this age is absolutely taboo, even amongst people who claim to believe in God. So that's to me is an incredible thing. And so Jesus in Mark 6:11, whosoever shall not receive you nor hear you when ye depart thence, shake off the dust under your feet for a testimony against them. And so it's very prophetic. He's saying that's going, he wouldn't warn them if that wasn't ever going to happen. So he knows, like, he's telling them, like, just, it's going to happen. You're going to go into places and they're not going to receive you or hear you. Like, literally the words are not allowed to go into a person's brain. And like, I can sense that now, and I kind of have as much fun with it as I can, even though, again, it's a serious topic. But there's things that just are not allowed to enter people's brains. Like, you're not allowed to speak against the government, against the many, many people that are shills for the government, that are on this earth worldwide. And there have to be a lot of shills for the government, or else the mark of the beast prophecy could not happen. And so, again, it's becoming very, very clear why all this is in place. But, I'm just kind of speaking out loud to help people understand, why this stuff is happening, and why is it so difficult to talk to people about things now that are not conspiracy theories, like the financial manipulation worldwide, and deception, and then pumping the stock market, and then deflating it when it benefits a few. That's like common knowledge now that's happening. It's not a mystery. You just have to look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average and like that, those humps and those just major bumps and then drops. That's not normal. That is manipulation. Just, it's obvious. And so the valuations are also a form of manipulation, but that's even another story, and so the actual height of the peak is one major problem, just inflating asset bubbles, equity bubbles, and then the drops, the precipitous huge drops is also evil. It's wrong, and obvious that it's happening, and it's only benefiting a few. And so, this is the world that we live in. And so, again, just don't be discouraged when people don't hear you or us. Like we have to, try and share whenever we can. And like, even if it's strictly out of boredom, I think that's not a wrong reason to go and share things, because what else better is there to do, honestly? Like, for those of us who feel that we have the truth and we can sense the mark of the beast that's going to be fulfilled soon, all we can do is warn people, and do the best that we can, but just know that a lot of people are not going to hear us, and that's okay. And so in this verse, it says that it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. And so basically what the Bible speaks of, and it's scary to think, because again, I'm like everybody else. I look outside, see these buildings, and they were there yesterday, and I don't see any reason why they won't be there tomorrow. But the Bible speaks of an incredible judgment coming up against this place called Babylon, Mystery Babylon, which I feel is America, and I have videos that support that stance, that it will be more tolerable for America than it was in Sodom and Gomorrah. So God is essentially saying he's going to unleash an even greater fury on the day of judgment than he did in Sodom and Gomorrah. And there's not a blade of grass that grows in modern day Sodom. So, homosexual marriage is, like, again, part of the fabric of our society. And that's one thing, but it's one thing if that was just in isolation. But we now are essentially forced to be spiritually a homosexual by having no power to stand up for the poor or the oppressed, and just bending over to corporate America literally every day, and then having to be basically pro-homosexual agenda, being a part of that if you want to date or marry and all that, because a majority of women are on this earth strictly to keep men earthly, and so a lot of them will be either neutral or pro, homosexual rights. And so that's also, a major problem for anybody who, wants to speak up against the evils of that lifestyle and then all the things that surround it. And so the issue with homosexuality too is not simply just anal sex, because, obviously women don't have that type of thing, but it's more just the effeminate spirit. And the Bible says the effeminate will not enter the kingdom. And so that's where I feel this is only for certain people to understand, but we are forced to be effeminate in this society that we live in. And then, so to me, we either have two options that, we either care more about the kingdom and then we want our life to end, or we don't get in the kingdom. And so to me, people, God's children, those closest to him, negotiate with God in this way and say that we are forced to be effeminate, borderline spiritually homosexual, and you said that that's not allowed in the kingdom. So what do we do here? What are our options? Do I come to you or do you come to us? And that's really it. And so, again, that's not for everybody to understand, but to me, it's becoming more and more clear to even the non-religious that this place is incredibly evil. And so, just be aware of this statement that Jesus makes. And again, it's in Mark 6:11, not by coincidence. 6 times 11 is 66. And so these are just people, like I've said in a past video, the number 6 is just incomplete. It's a man, it's flesh, it's not spiritual. So people who are not spiritual are only allowed to understand the narrative that is on earth, that is fed by humans, by men and women. They're not allowed to look for a narrative. They're not allowed to look for an architect, a person who's quote unquote a conspirator, which we believe is God, who's behind all this stuff. Again, hopefully orchestrating all this evil for a righteous purpose, but they're not allowed to go anywhere near that kind of thinking. And so this is the number of a man, the beast system and all those who are a part of it, and then ultimately worship it by taking the mark of the beast, are reflective of the number 6 or 666. And so they will not hear us. You could literally give them, we can talk until we're blue in the face about God's spirituality, how the Big Bang is non-causal, non-physical, it's not statistically likely, and all these kind of things. But they're just programmed to go with the flow, and broad is the path to destruction. And again, may God not put us on that path, and instead use us, like in Mark 6:11, go share the truth, and we don't want to be a part of this judgment. And whenever Jesus speaks and he says, "Verily I say unto you," verily, you can think of it similar to the word verify. It's like truly, and he uses that word a lot. Verily, verily. He's like, these are, if the Bible is true, you take this to the bank. God's saying that. Trust me, it will be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah than for that city. And so, if we apply that to this modern day, and we go to people and tell them, about all the sins that are going on in the world, and first and foremost, when it's appropriate, we share, our sinful nature, and how this beast system has tainted us, and how we're crying out for God to rescue us. And we urge other people to do the same thing, because that's the only logical thing to do in a time right now that is this evil. And so, may we be on that side of it, and just know that these words to me are ringing, very, very true in the time that we live in now, where it wouldn't make sense that people are not willing to hear things like, again, that are blatantly obvious. And so then to me, the only natural thing that's the reason behind it is that God has blinded them, and made them not able to. He's made them deaf. They're not able to hear truth. And so we do what we can to share. If there's no sort of leeway, there's no interest, it's okay. We depart, we shake our dust off our feet in a spiritual sense. And essentially what that's saying is, like, you don't want any part of that on us. Like, we don't, like, when we in this case, it's like, if you go to somebody's house and, like, you sit down, and then, like, they don't accept obvious truths that we know are, like, very, very clear and self-evident now. Not even necessarily flat earth, because that takes a little bit of time, but things that are very, very obvious that are going on in the world, the evils. You don't want, like, the smell of that place. You don't want the dust from that place on your feet. You don't want to remember that place even existed. Just, it's basically, and Jesus is saying it in a different way, but he's just saying it, just forget about them, like, get the dust off your feet, leave the dust there, and then it's going to be burned, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, but even worse. And so the Bible says that Babylon will be burnt and not inhabited anymore. And so it's, like, literally going to be annihilated from end to end. And so all these people who say that nukes don't exist and all that, if you're right, then the Bible is false, and again, we don't know that for sure until it actually happens. But, to me, that's a big gamble to take, especially with what we see going on in the world and all the tensions brewing and all that kind of stuff. And then probably most importantly, we see the pervasiveness of homosexuality, not necessarily just in America, but worldwide. And then again, if the Bible's true and God had a judgment for Sodom and Gomorrah, how much more would he be poised to exercise that judgment, here in America? Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.